Hey there, this is Scott. Today we're going to do some processing of that Borrego Sunrise image I showed you a few days ago. So in processing this image, the main concern that I had was having a foreground element. I couldn't find, a good, like a rock or a shrub, or there were, no trees really out in the desert there to anchor the foreground of the frame. So when I composed it, I decided to use the natural rolling of the hills and convey some distance that way. And I want to make sure that shows up in the processing. So let's go on over to the computer and I'll show you what I did. I whittled down the set of photos I took that morning, about 60 of them, to maybe 10 that I kept. And we're going to work on this bracketed set here. You can see, let me make this a little bit bigger. You can see we've got the underexposed image, which is great for the sky. Or sorry, this is the nominal exposed image, which is great for the sky. And the overexposed image was really to get these differences in the hills, our foreground, midground, and then background. The underexposed I just took in case I'd need it, but really looking at these, I'm only going to need these two. And so we can see what I've done here. This is our nominal exposure. I had changed the exposure compensation just down a third of a stop, and that was to prevent too much of the highlights from getting blown. And then this is the one overexposed at what would normally be a +2 in a traditional -2, 0, 2 bracketing. So I'm going to grab these two photos. I've done very little adjustments to them, mainly some chromatic aberration just along the edge of the horizon. We'll take a look at that. You can see here I've done a very slight tweak on the cyan. Zooming in here, I think this was the area that it was showing up. And I'm not sure if this is going to come through on the video. It's really subtle, but it was appearing. You can kind of see it right there. So I've taken care of that in aperture. I'm going to grab these two exposures and edit as layers in perfect layers. Right here in perfect layers, we have the nominal exposure on the top and then the overexposed image on the bottom. And really all I want to do is I want to mask away this dark area here and bring in the lighter area on the bottom. So I get that feeling of depth. So I've already got my masking bug selected. I have linear top and gradient. Let's switch that to linear bottom and drop the bug on here. We can already see this is already better. Something I want to point out about the bug, I happen to click here, and that's where it put the center point. You can always move this around. I'm really sliding this left to right. That creates the pivot point, right? If I slide it down here, I get a different kind of pivot. So I'm just going to position this and get something with a natural kind of fade. I don't mind the fact that this back area here is a little bit darker than the valley floor. That's okay. Let me move the cursor outside of the way there and see what that looks like. I might bring it up just a little more. It looks pretty nice. I mean, so real simple, real straightforward. Not a lot of magic there, and that's the mask that I want to do. At this stage, what I'll do now is create a composite layer. So I will take these two together, go to Layer, New Stamped Layer, merge those together, and let me select the top layer now. So at this point, everything is in this single layer, and before I go to stylization, there's a few little lights and things that are down in the valley here. I'm going to get rid of those with the perfect eraser. Use the bracket keys to size the brush, and real simple clicks here. You can see these areas are kind of noisy. This was really, really dark. And we're going to clean up the noise later. Not going to worry about that for now. I'm just going to get rid of anything that can be construed as a spot. Couple more clicks there. This part looks okay. Something out there. Somebody's got either a car out in the desert or a little farmhouse out there. All right, that's looking pretty good. right, so now we're going to take this over into the effects module, and I'll apply some stylization. Right here in Enhance, the first thing I want to work on is color. So let's get a color enhancer. And the automatic settings there are all right, that's fine. But I want to get the blues and the oranges in the sky stronger. So let's start with the sky enhancer. I'll compare that to, let's maybe fall for the oranges. Well, that's way too hot. Let's go back to the sky enhancer and start there. So that's not bad. I'm going to bring back, let me do an undo here really quickly. You saw that the auto boosted up the tint and lowered the warmth a little bit. I like that. I'm going to redo that. So I'm going to kind of mimic those settings here, bringing up that magenta tint and cooling it off just a little bit. It's giving it more of a twilight feel. The blues look pretty good, or sorry, the aquas look good. The blues, again, I'm going to shift that ever so slightly toward the twilight colors. And now let's take a look at the oranges. Okay, oranges are flat. Let's pop the saturation up a little bit. Way too hot. And you can see I'm just kind of clicking around, experimenting, see what settings look pretty good here. But that looks all right. Now for a little more a tone adjustment and maybe a little bit of structure to the photo. I'll grab a tone enhancer. And the auto settings, actually it's brightened it up pretty nicely. You can see the valley floor more, a little more sense of depth. That's nice. Let's get a little more detail. And that's too much. Again, just clicking around. I want a little detail in the skies, a little softness to be maintained there. And this bit of additional structure in the hills and the rocks, that's good. I want to do some more with the tone enhancer too, but I'm going to do that with a second tone enhancer. I want to add more color here. And one of the things I really like about the tone enhancer is the tone curve down at the bottom. Now first let me turn off the auto setting. We've already done that, and I don't want to redo it. So the auto, turning that off, setting everything back to 0. In addition to the RGB channel, which is kind of like your luminance, we've got the red, the green, and the blue. I'm going to start in the blue channel and just grab the curve and drag it up a little bit, saying, give me more blue. And I'm looking only at the sky, and the sky's more highlights than shadows, so let me bias the curve a little more toward the highlights. That's pretty good. And now let's also do something with the green channel and actually bring that down just a touch. And that's going to add in that nice twilight, purplish blue hue. I'm going to undo what I just did with the green and now redo it. You can see that difference. Less is more when you're working with this curve here. Now the only thing is these color adjustments are global right now for the scene. So if I toggle this layer on and off, watch the valley floor. Do it again. And the valley floor is getting that bluish tinge. It's not too bad. It's not overdone, and it kind of blends well. But I'd like to take a little of the edge off of that. So I'm going to grab a masking bug, and let me go to linear bottom and drop the bug down on here again. So I'm removing this effect from the bottom part of the photo. And not everywhere. I'm going to keep some of that twilight coloring, particularly out past the horizon, where it makes sense that those colors would be reflecting off of some of the dust and the atmosphere that's out there. So that looks nice. We'll finish it off with a vignette. If you've got my landscape and architectures book, first off, thank you very much. But you'll know I finished almost everything off with the vignette. And how I like to work these controls is I turn the brightness and the feather all the way down, and I can see exactly where this vignette's being applied. Then I'll fiddle with the roundness. I'm going to take this down this way, and the size, because I only want to touch the corners. I don't want to do too much vignetting on this at all. That looks good. I'll bring the feather back almost all the way up to the top, and then just finally change the brightness until something looks pretty good, and I'm going to settle around there. All right, so that's our stylization. Let me apply this, and the last bit of cleanup work we're going to need to do is in Perfect Enhance. So let me get this back into layers. And why we need enhance is because on the valley floor, we've got a whole lot of noise. This was an overexposed, remember we blended in the overexposed layer here, and you overexpose things, or anytime you try to open up the shadows, you're bound to get some noise in there. So we'll take this layer. I did convert it to a smart layer before going into effects. I don't think I showed that on the video, but that's something I am always doing now in Perfect Photo Suite 9. Let's go into Enhance, and down here at the bottom of this, we have noise reduction. So I'm going to turn it on to subtle. And when you enable noise reduction, it immediately zooms you in at 100%. Let me refocus the zoom onto the shadow area, and that looks quite nice. I'm going to use a different preset though, shadows only. I only want this happening in the darker areas of the photo. I don't want my sky to have any noise reduction applied. It doesn't need it, and I would lose some of the detail I've put in there. That's really nice. Let me just quickly turn that off. You can see how noisy it is. Turn that on. Much better. And it's fuzzier, but I'm okay with that. This is not the important part of the picture. This is just to convey overall depth. This is the important part. So that's it. Apply that, and we're done. And there it is. That's our final product, this image. And again, I'm happy with this one. It came out quite nice. It's something different. I haven't been going to the desert very much. I usually head for the oceans, but it's fun to mix it up a little bit. So until next time, again, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you'd like to hear more about. If you want more in post, you want to see more notes from the field, questions would be great. I'd like, again, make this a two-way conversation. So that's it for this time. Thanks for joining me.